Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Night was falling on the city, enveloping the streets in thick darkness. In a silent alleyway, Emily Stanton, an elegant but hate-ridden woman, nervously scanned her surroundings. Her target was a young man she had decided to punish solely because of his skin color, Marcus Hayes, the son of the police general. She knew exactly where he would be spending the night. Her fingers trembled slightly as she slipped a small vial containing a white powder into her bag. The act was calculated, precise, but every fiber of her body was tense with fear of being seen. "He must pay," she whispered through gritted teeth. Marcus, innocent and unaware of the trap closing in on him, walked leisurely toward the library exit, his bag slung casually over his shoulder. Emily followed him at a distance, concealing her presence behind shadows and parked cars. A few minutes later, she walked over, slipped the drugs into the bag while Marcus looked at his phone, and quickly walked away, a cold smile on her face. Little did she know, this act would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. The next day, Marcus's bag would be discovered, the police would be alerted, and his father, the general, would be implicated in a case that could shake his entire career. But what Emily didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just any young man. Behind his outward calm lay an intelligence and resilience that would turn this injustice into an unforgettable lesson. The next morning, Marcus Hayes left his house to go to music class. His familiar bag suddenly felt heavier. As he stepped onto the subway, he felt the stares of some passengers, but he ignored their whispers. A few stops later, the air grew heavy as uniformed police officers blocked access. One of them stepped forward. "Marcus Hayes?" he asked, his voice firm. Marcus frowned in surprise. "Yes, so what?" Before he could react, another officer reached into his bag and pulled out a small pouch of white powder. Time seemed to stand still. Marcus felt his heart race. "What the?" "It's not mine," he shouted, but no one seemed to be listening. The police officers handcuffed him and escorted him to the police station. At home, General Hayes, Marcus's father, was immediately informed. His face hardened. He knew his son was incapable of such an act, but the evidence was overwhelming, or at least it seemed so. Meanwhile, Emily Stanton was at home, watching the news on television with a satisfied smile. She was unaware that a library security camera had captured the entire scene. Evidence that could very well turn the tables on her. In the general's office, Marcus tried to explain. "Dad. It wasn't me, I swear." The general, torn between anger and disbelief, took a deep breath. His instincts told him something was wrong. He knew this case wouldn't simply be solved by the police, he had to dig deeper, to seek the truth behind this trap. And so a silent war began, an innocent young man against the calculated hatred of a racist woman, and against the trap she had set. The next morning, in General Hayes's office, Marcus was still in shock but determined to prove his innocence. His father, a man of authority and accustomed to sensitive investigations, had already begun reviewing surveillance footage of the library and the surrounding streets. "Dad, look," Marcus said, pointing at the screen. The video clearly showed someone slipping something into his bag while he was engrossed in his phone. The culprit's face briefly appeared on the screen, Emily Stanton, perfectly recognizable. General Hayes felt anger rising within him, but he knew he had to remain strategic. "Marcus, don't tell anyone. We need to prepare our plan before we confront him." Meanwhile, Emily went about her day as if nothing had happened. She was unaware that her movements had been captured by the security camera and that one crucial detail might confuse her, a powder stain on her sleeve. General Hayes then summoned his most trusted investigative team. He showed them the video and explained the situation. Every detail mattered, the way Emily had approached Marcus, the discretion of her actions, and especially the lack of a credible witness. But the general knew that the physical evidence and the videos would be enough to reveal the truth. At the Hayes house, Marcus looked at his father in admiration. "Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd believe me." "Marcus," the general replied, his gaze stern, this is just the beginning. She tried to destroy your life. We're going to make sure she pays for what she did." And so the tension mounted. Marcus had proof of his innocence, but Emily remained free, carefree, and dangerously close to repeating her deed. The final confrontation was inevitable. General Hayes spent the night thinking. Emily Stanton had to be arrested, but he knew that a direct approach could make her disappear or destroy the evidence. He had to develop a precise, methodical plan. In the morning, he summoned Marcus to his office. "Marcus, you're going to have to help me. We have to trap Emily into confessing so the police can't let her get away with it." Marcus nodded, his gaze determined. "Whatever you want, Dad. I just want this to be over and justice done." The general began to detail the strategy. 1. Collect all evidence, the video of the library, the traces of powder on Emily and any witnesses potential. 2. Create a controlled confrontation, a situation where Emily will believe that Marcus is still in danger, but where it is actually protected and monitored. 3. Force the confession, with the threat of the expertise of the evidence and the cameras, it will have no loophole. Meanwhile, Emily continued to boast about her successful coup. Little did she know that Marcus and his father not only had the video evidence, but also a plan to catch her in the act if she tried again. General Hayes brought in a computer technician to create a fake scenario. A bag identical to Marcus's would be placed in the library with invisible trackers and additional cameras. Emily, thinking she could pull it off again, would be filmed and captured in the act. Marcus, though nervous, followed the plan to the letter. He knew his life and innocence were at stake, but this strategy could not only clear him of all wrongdoing, but also expose Emily's racial hatred for the world to see. By evening, everything was ready. The cameras, the fake bag, and the tracking device. Marcus and his father watched from a discreet location, ready to intervene at the slightest mistake. Little did Emily know, she was walking straight into the trap that would change her life forever. Night had fallen, and the library was nearly empty. Emily Stanton, confident and self-assured, quietly entered the building, holding a bag identical to Marcus's. Her goal, to repeat her actions, to prove that she could harm Marcus without consequence. She didn't know that every move was being watched. Cameras, specially installed by General Hayes, were filming everything, and an invisible tracking device was signaling exactly where she would place the bag. Emily slid the bag onto a table and bent down to add the powder. At that precise moment, a light came on behind her, and a cold voice rang out. "Emily Stanton. Stop what you are doing immediately." She whirled around abruptly, surprised and terrified. General Hayes and Marcus appeared, surrounded by police officers. "How are you here?" Emily stammered, panic rising in her voice. "You thought you could harm my son with impunity," General Hayes replied, his gaze icy. "But everything is filmed. Every gesture, every detail, every trace." Emily tried to escape, but the police surrounded her. The video evidence of her previous actions and the tracking device on the bag were damning. She could no longer deny it. Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding, but with a new firmness. "It's over, Emily. You can't hurt me anymore." The confrontation was swift but intense. Emily, realizing that her plan had failed and her racial hatred exposed, burst into clumsy apologies, trying to justify her actions. But General Hayes, impassive, knew that apologies could not erase the injustice committed. The police officers took Emily away, while Marcus finally breathed. His innocence was proven, and justice had been served. But the general knew that this case left emotional scars, and he placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "It wasn't just the law that protected you, Marcus. It was the truth. And as long as you keep that strength within you, no hatred can ever destroy you." Marcus nodded, his eyes shining. For the first time since those events, he felt free and safe. The following days were eventful. Emily Stanton was formally charged with attempted murder, possession of illegal substances, and harassment. The local media picked up on the case, revealing the full extent of her premeditated, racist act. Her name became synonymous with hatred and malice, while Marcus and his family were praised for their composure and courage. In court, Emily initially appeared arrogant, but faced with video evidence and witness testimony, her attitude changed. She tried to deny and justify her actions, but every argument crumbled before the reality of the facts. The judge handed down a harsh sentence, and society saw that justice could overcome hatred when supported by irrefutable evidence. For Marcus, life gradually returned to normal. Music lessons, which he had almost abandoned out of fear and humiliation, became a refuge again. He played with a new intensity, transforming his fear and anger into powerful and moving melodies. His father, General Hayes, watched over him with renewed attention. Events had strengthened their bond. Marcus understood that he was not alone in the face of injustice and that the truth, even when it seemed fragile, always emerged. One evening, as Marcus was playing the piano in their living room, his father came in silently and sat down next to him. "You know, Marcus," he began, "what you went through could have broken you. But you turned it into strength. That's what makes you different." Marcus smiled gratefully and continued his music. Each note seemed to chase away the last memories of fear, and the house now echoed with hope rather than threat. Thus, the hatred of a single person had been neutralized by truth, courage, and justice. Marcus now knew that no matter the obstacles or prejudices, he could always count on his family and their determination to overcome any adversity. Weeks after the trial, Marcus still felt the emotional scars of what he had experienced. But he refused to let Emily's fear and hatred define his life. Inspired by his father's unwavering support and the strength he had discovered within himself, he decided to turn this experience into a positive project. With the help of his music teacher, Marcus organized a charity concert called Justice Notes, aimed at raising awareness about the injustices of racism and promoting inclusion. It wasn't just about music, but a clear message: hate can never triumph over determination and truth. The night of the concert, the venue was packed. Marcus took the stage, his heart pounding, but with a newfound confidence. Every note he played seemed to resonate beyond the walls, carrying a message of courage, resilience, and hope. The audience, captivated by the emotional power of his music, rose to applaud him at the end, recognizing not only his talent, but also the strength that emanated from his journey. After the concert, General Hayes hugged his son. "I knew you had that strength within you, Marcus. But today, you shared it with everyone." Marcus smiled, feeling that this moment marked a turning point. He understood that the traumatic experience he had gone through was not an end, but the beginning of a mission, to use his voice, his music, and his intelligence to fight injustice and inspire others to do the same. Thus, from the shadow of hatred and betrayal, a light was born, that of a young man who transformed his pain into hope, and who, thanks to truth and courage, built a better future for himself and for those who listened to him. Months after the trial, Emily Stanton was still on probation and trying to repair her image. She sent public letters and clumsy apologies, claiming to have changed. But General Hayes and Marcus knew her apologies were just a facade. She had never acknowledged the seriousness of her actions or the pain it had caused. One evening, the general invited Emily to meet Marcus in an official setting, under guard. She entered the office hesitantly, perhaps hoping to manipulate the situation to her advantage. But Marcus and his father were prepared. "Emily," General Hayes began, his voice cold, "we're here to hear the truth. Not empty excuses or justifications." Emily tried to smile, but her hands were shaking. I just wanted to," she stammered, but Marcus interrupted. "No, Emily. You wanted to destroy my life because of the color of my skin. It wasn't right, and it wasn't just a one-off. You showed who you really are." General Hayes added, "We have been patient, we have allowed justice to do its work. But it is time you understood the real impact of your actions." Emily looked down, unable to meet Marcus's firm gaze. She finally realized that her apologies couldn't erase the truth or undo the damage done. For the first time, she felt the weight of her actions and the responsibility she had to take. Marcus, with surprising maturity and strength for his age, concludes, "What you did will never completely disappear, but what matters is what I do with my life now." And I choose truth, courage, and justice." Emily left the room, silent and humiliated, while Marcus and his father stood side by side, more united than ever. The final confrontation had not only exposed Emily's guilt, it had sealed Marcus's resilience and strength in the face of injustice. After the confrontation with Emily, Marcus felt it wasn't enough to simply stand up for himself. He wanted his experience to serve something greater, to raise awareness of racial injustice in his community and inspire young people to never give in to hate. With the help of his father and his music teacher, Marcus started a program called Music and Courage, combining music workshops, discussions on equality and educational projects on respect and inclusion. It used music as a universal language to convey values of tolerance and justice. The first workshop attracted an unexpected crowd: children, teenagers, parents, and even local police officers who wanted to show their support. Marcus took the stage and performed a piece he had composed himself, entitled Notes of Truth. Every note echoed as a reminder that hatred could never stifle the strength and courage of innocence. At the end of the session, Marcus spoke. "What I went through could have broken me. But I chose to turn fear into strength, and hatred into action. We all need to stand up against injustice, no matter our age. And we can do it together." The applause was long and warm. Marcus felt a new energy. He was no longer just a young man who had survived an injustice, he was becoming a symbol of resilience and hope for all who listened to him. General Hayes, in the shadows of the room, watched his son with pride. He knew that Marcus had just reached a milestone. He was no longer just protected by his father and the law, he was now capable of protecting others and changing the minds around him. Thus, from hardship and hatred, a movement was born. Marcus had found his voice, and he intended to use it to ensure that no one in his community would ever again suffer what he had experienced. A few months after the launch of its program, Music and Courage, Marcus thought the story with Emily was over for good. But Emily, resentful and unable to accept her defeat, tried one last manipulation. She began spreading false rumors in the community, claiming that Marcus had rigged his program to get revenge and sully her name. The young man quickly sensed that these accusations could tarnish his efforts and harm the young people he was trying to help. With his father, he decided to act calmly but firmly. "Dad," Marcus said, "she's trying to destroy everything again. What do we do?" General Hayes smiled, sure of his strategy. "We're going to confront her one last time, but this time, publicly. You have the evidence and the truth on your side. She can't hide anymore." On the day of the confrontation, Marcus invited Emily to an event on his program, under the pretext of mediation. In front of the entire community, Emily began lying and accusing Marcus. But thanks to the previous testimonies, the videos, and the total transparency of the young man and his team, her lies were immediately exposed. Emily tried to justify herself, but every word she spoke plunged her deeper into shame. The crowd, aware of the truth, looked at her with a mixture of contempt and disappointment. Marcus, calm but determined, spoke. "What you see here is the truth. What is false will always fall away. Hate and manipulation never have the last word." General Hayes intervened. "Emily Stanton, you have faced justice and truth. Your attempts to do further harm will only confirm your moral and social culpability." Humiliated and defenseless, Emily left the event in full view of everyone. Marcus felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. This final confrontation had sealed the victory of truth over hatred. The community applauded Marcus and his initiative, understanding that his courage and determination had transformed a personal ordeal into a universal message of resilience and justice. A few months after the public confrontation, Marcus had found a serenity he had never known. His program, Music and Courage, continued to grow, attracting more and more young people, families, and even local institutions eager to promote equality and respect. Every morning, as he watched the young people file into the room for his workshops, Marcus remembered what he had been through. The fear, the betrayal, the humiliation, all of it had been transformed into strength and motivation. He understood that injustice, though frightening, could be a force for change when confronted with courage and truth. His father, General Hayes, often looked at him with admiration. "Marcus," he said one evening after a rehearsal, you have proven that justice and courage are not just words. They live within you. Marcus smiled, his eyes shining with newfound conviction. Dad, I want every young person to know that they can stand up, no matter the hatred or obstacles they face. The truth is stronger than anything. Emily Stanton, meanwhile, had disappeared from social and professional radars. The shame and reality of her actions had isolated her. Marcus knew that justice had been served, not only legally, but morally. That evening, Marcus played one last melody on the piano in the community hall. Each note resonated like a celebration of truth, resilience, and hope. The young people's faces, captivated and inspired, reflected the lasting impact of his courage. And as the last note faded into the silent room, Marcus knew this chapter of his life was over. But his fight for justice and equality had just begun, and he was ready to continue lighting up the world with his music and his heart. Thus ended the story of Marcus Hayes, a young man who, faced with hatred and injustice, transformed pain into strength and fear into light, leaving behind a legacy of courage and hope for all those around him.